You know what they say about trust, it takes years to build and seconds to destroy. What they don't tell you is how long it takes to rebuild your life after someone you love destroys that trust completely. My name is James, and this is the story of how I discovered my wife's affair and made sure she paid the ultimate price for her betrayal. Started with a phone call that changed everything. Not the kind of dramatic, middle-of-the-night call you see in movies, but something much more ordinary and therefore much more devastating. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March, and I was sitting in my home office reviewing quarterly reports when my phone rang. "Is this James Morrison?" the voice asked. It was a woman, probably in her 40s, with the kind of tired tone that comes from making difficult phone calls all day. "Yes, this is James. Mr. Morrison, this is Linda Chun from Riverside Medical Center. I'm calling about your wife, Amanda Morrison. She was brought in about an hour ago after a car accident." My blood went cold. Amanda had left that morning for what she said was a client meeting in the city, about an hour's drive from our suburban home. She was a marketing consultant who often traveled to meet with potential clients, so her being away for the day wasn't unusual. "Is she okay?" I asked, already grabbing my keys and heading for the door. "She's stable, but she has a concussion and some bruising. The doctor wants to keep her overnight for observation. The thing is, Mr. Morrison, there was a passenger in the car with her. A man named David Chin. He's also stable, but I wanted to let you know." David Chin. I had never heard that name before in my life. "I'm sorry, did you say David Chin? I don't know anyone by that name. Are you sure he was with my wife?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Yes, sir. According to the police report, they were both in the front seat of your wife's vehicle when it was struck by another car at an intersection. Mr. Chun listed Mrs. Morrison as his emergency contact. Amanda had listed a stranger as her emergency contact, a stranger who was in her car during what was supposed to be a business meeting. My mind raced through possible explanations, but none of them made sense. "I'll be right there," I said, ending the call. The drive to the hospital felt like the longest hour of my life. I kept trying to come up with innocent explanations for why Amanda would be with someone I'd never heard of, someone who apparently knew her well enough to list her as his emergency contact. Maybe he was a new client. Maybe he was a colleague from one of her previous companies. Maybe there was a perfectly reasonable explanation that would make me feel foolish for even questioning it. But deep down, I already knew the truth. When I arrived at the hospital, I found Amanda in a private room, awake but groggy from the concussion. She had a bandage on her forehead and bruises on her arms, but she was conscious and alert enough to look panicked when she saw me walk through the door. "James," she said, her voice weak, "I'm so glad you're here. How are you feeling?" I asked, sitting down in the chair next to her bed. "The hospital called and said you were in an accident." "I'm okay, just shaken up. The other driver ran a red light and hit us on the passenger side. Could have been much worse." She said us. "Amanda, who is David Chun?" The color drained from her face, which was impressive considering she was already pale from the accident. She looked away from me, staring at the ceiling as if the answer to my question might be written there. He's a client. I was driving him to look at a potential venue for his company's annual conference. A client who lists you as his emergency contact? I don't know why he did that. Maybe he doesn't have family in the area." I wanted to believe her. After 15 years of marriage, I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. But something in her voice, something in the way she couldn't meet my eyes, told me she was lying. "Where were you going?" I asked. "To the Marriott downtown. They have conference facilities that might work for his event." "What's the name of his company?" Another pause. Another look away. "Chun Consulting." I pulled out my phone and did a quick search for Chun Consulting. Nothing came up. No website, no business listings, no social media presence. Either David Chun ran the most invisible consulting company in the world, or Amanda was lying to me. "I'm going to go find some coffee," I said, standing up. "Do you want anything?" "No, I'm fine. Thank you." I walked out of Amanda's room and went straight to the nurse's station. The same woman who had called me, Linda Chun, was sitting behind the desk. "Excuse me, I'm James Morrison. You called me about my wife's accident. Oh yes, Mr. Morrison. How is she doing? She's awake and seems to be okay. I was wondering if I could get some information about the other person in the car. David Chun. Is he related to you? Linda looked confused. David Chun? No, that's just a coincidence. It's a common name. Why do you ask? My wife says he's a client, but I've never heard of him before. I'm just trying to understand what happened. Linda's expression changed, becoming more sympathetic. Mr. Morrison, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but when Mr. Chun was brought in, he was very concerned about your wife. More concerned than I would expect from a business relationship. And when we asked for his emergency contact information, he immediately gave us your wife's name and number, not his own family. Is he still here? Yes, he's in room 314. But Mr. Morrison, maybe you should talk to your wife first. I thanked Linda and walked back toward Amanda's room. But instead of going in, I took the elevator to the third floor. Room 314 was at the end of the hall, and through the partially open door, I could see a man about my age lying in bed, talking quietly on his phone. I know, he was saying. But she's going to be fine. The doctor said it's just a concussion. No, her husband is here. I can't see her right now. I love you too. I love you too. I stood in that hospital hallway, listening to a stranger tell my wife he loved her, and felt my entire world collapse. 15 years of marriage, 15 years of building a life together, 15 years of trust and commitment, and it was all a lie. I walked back to Amanda's room, sat down in the chair next to her bed, and looked at the woman I thought I knew better than anyone in the world. Amanda, I said quietly, I need you to tell me the truth about David Chun. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, there were tears streaming down her face. James, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. How long? 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of betrayal. Half a year of coming home to a woman who was living a double life. Do you love him? She nodded, unable to speak. Are you leaving me? Another nod. I sat there for a moment, processing the complete destruction of my marriage. Then I stood up, kissed Amanda on the forehead, and walked out of the hospital room. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I checked into a hotel and spent the evening staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how I had missed the signs of my wife's affair. Looking back, there had been clues: the late nights, the mysterious phone calls, the sudden interest in working out and buying new clothes. But I had trusted her completely, and that trust had made me blind to what was happening right in front of me. The next morning, I called my lawyer and filed for divorce. I also hired a private investigator to document Amanda's relationship with David Chun. I wanted to know everything: how they met, how long it had been going on, where they went together, what they had planned for their future. What I discovered was worse than I had imagined. Amanda and David had been planning to leave their respective spouses and start a new life together. They had been looking at apartments, discussing finances, and even talking about getting married once their divorces were finalized. The car accident had happened because they were on their way to sign a lease on a condo where they planned to live together. But the most devastating discovery was that David Chun was married too, with 2 young children. His wife, Susan, had no idea about the affair. She thought her husband was working late and traveling for business, just like I had thought about Amanda. That's when I realized that Amanda and David hadn't just betrayed their spouses. They had betrayed 2 entire families. David's children were going to lose their father, just like I was losing my wife. Susan Chun was going to experience the same devastation I was feeling. And that's when I decided that Amanda and David needed to face consequences that went far beyond a simple divorce. I spent the next 3 months planning the most comprehensive revenge I could imagine. I wanted Amanda and David to lose everything they valued: their reputations, their careers, their financial security, and most importantly, each other. The plan I developed was complex and would unfold over several months, but it would ensure that Amanda and David paid the ultimate price for their betrayal. First, I documented everything. The private investigator I hired was thorough and discreet, gathering evidence of the affair that would hold up in court and ensure that Amanda received nothing in our divorce settlement. But more than that, I wanted evidence that would destroy their reputations in our community. Amanda's marketing consulting business depended on her image as a trustworthy, family-oriented professional. Many of her clients were local businesses that valued traditional family values. I began systematically undermining her professional relationships by sharing carefully edited information about her affair with key clients and business contacts. I didn't lie or exaggerate. I simply made sure that the truth about Amanda's character became known to the people whose opinions mattered most to her career. At the same time, I began reaching out to David Chen's wife, Susan. I didn't tell her about the affair directly. Instead, I hired the private investigator to approach her as if conducting a routine background check for a potential business partnership with David's company. The investigator asked Susan innocent questions about David's travel schedule, his work habits, and his business relationships. The questions were designed to make Susan start paying attention to inconsistencies in David's stories about where he was and what he was doing. Within 2 weeks, Susan Chun had hired her own private investigator to follow her husband. The second phase of my plan involved Amanda's family. Amanda was very close to her parents and her 2 sisters, and their opinion of her mattered more than anything else in the world. Her father was a retired police officer who had always been proud of his daughter's successful marriage and business. I began sharing my concerns about Amanda's behavior with her family, always framing it as worry for her well-being rather than accusations of infidelity. I mentioned that she seemed distant and stressed, that she was working odd hours and seemed unhappy in our marriage. I planted seeds of doubt about Amanda's honesty by pointing out small inconsistencies in the stories she told her family about her work and social activities. I never directly accused her of anything, but I made sure her family started paying closer attention to her behavior. The third phase was the most crucial. I needed to destroy Amanda and David's relationship from the inside. They thought they were in love, but their relationship was built on deception and betrayal. I wanted them to experience the same doubt and suspicion that I had felt when I discovered their affair. Using information from the private investigator, I began creating situations that would make Amanda and David question each other's faithfulness. I hired an actress to approach David at his gym, pretending to be an old girlfriend who wanted to reconnect. I had another woman call Amanda's phone by mistake, asking for David and mentioning a romantic dinner they had supposedly shared. Each piece of false evidence was designed to make Amanda and David doubt each other, just as I had been forced to doubt Amanda. I wanted them to experience the paranoia, the jealousy, and the sick feeling of wondering if the person they loved was betraying them. The psychological warfare was working. Through the private investigator's surveillance, I could see that Amanda and David were becoming more suspicious of each other, more demanding of each other's time and attention, more jealous of other people in each other's lives. Their perfect affair was becoming complicated and stressful, just like my marriage had become for me. The fourth phase involved their finances. Amanda and David had been planning to combine their resources to start their new life together, but I made sure that both of them faced unexpected financial difficulties that would strain their relationship. I used my knowledge of Amanda's business to compete with her for clients, winning several major contracts by offering better terms and more reliable service. Within 2 months, Amanda's income had dropped by 60%, and she was struggling to pay her bills. At the same time, I arranged for David's employer to discover some irregularities in his expense reports, irregularities that I had created by hacking into his company's system and altering his travel records. David was suspended pending an investigation, cutting off his income just when he and Amanda needed money most. The financial stress was putting enormous pressure on their relationship. They had planned to move in together, but neither of them could afford to maintain their current lifestyle, let alone start a new one. The final phase of my plan was designed to bring everything together in the most devastating way possible. I wanted Amanda and David to lose each other at the moment when they needed each other most, and I wanted their betrayal to be exposed to everyone who mattered to them. I arranged for Susan Chun to discover the truth about her husband's affair on the same day that Amanda's family learned about her betrayal. I coordinated with Susan's private investigator to ensure that she would confront David at the exact moment when Amanda's father would confront her. The confrontations happened on a Friday evening in June, exactly 3 months after the car accident that had exposed their affair. Susan Chun arrived at the apartment where David and Amanda were meeting, armed with photographs and evidence of their relationship. At the same time, Amanda's father showed up at the same location, having been tipped off by an anonymous phone call about where his daughter would be. Both Amanda and David were caught completely off guard. They had thought they were meeting for a romantic evening, but instead they found themselves facing the two people whose opinions mattered most to them, David's wife and Amanda's father. The confrontation was devastating. Susan Chun was furious and heartbroken, demanding to know how David could destroy their family for a woman who was willing to cheat on her own husband. Amanda's father was disappointed and disgusted, telling his daughter that she had thrown away everything good in her life for a selfish affair. But the worst part for Amanda and David was realizing that their affair had been discovered and documented by multiple people, and that their secret relationship was about to become very public knowledge. Within a week, everyone in our social circle knew about the affair. Amanda's remaining clients canceled their contracts. David's employer fired him for the expense report irregularities. Both of their reputations in our community were destroyed. But the most devastating blow came when Amanda and David realized that they no longer trusted each other. The psychological warfare I had waged against them had worked perfectly. They were both convinced that the other person was cheating, and their relationship collapsed under the weight of mutual suspicion and paranoia. Amanda called me 2 weeks after the confrontation, crying and begging me to take her back. She said she had made a terrible mistake, that she had never really loved David, that she wanted to save our marriage. I listened to her plead for forgiveness, and then I told her exactly what I thought of her apology. Amanda, I said, you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to have an affair for 6 months. You chose to lie to me every day. You chose to plan a future with another man while pretending to love me. You chose to destroy our marriage for someone who turned out to be just as dishonest as you are. But I love you, she said. I've always loved you. No, you don't. You love the security I provided. You love the life we built together. You love the idea of not having to face the consequences of your choices. But you don't love me, because if you did, you never would have betrayed me in the first place. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Amanda received nothing except her personal belongings and her car, the same car where she had been caught with David Chun. I kept the house, our savings, and my retirement accounts. The evidence of her affair had voided any claim she might have had to our shared assets. Amanda's marketing business never recovered from the loss of clients and the damage to her reputation. She eventually had to take a job working for someone else, making a fraction of what she had earned as an independent consultant. David Chen's marriage ended in divorce as well, and he lost custody of his children. His career in finance was over, and he struggled to find work in our city where everyone knew about the affair. Most importantly, Amanda and David never got back together. The doubt and suspicion I had planted in their relationship had poisoned it beyond repair. They had destroyed their marriages for each other, but they ended up with nothing. As for me, I rebuilt my life from the ground up. I sold the house where Amanda had betrayed our marriage and bought a smaller place across town. I focused on my work and my hobbies, rediscovering parts of myself that I had neglected during my marriage. I eventually started dating again, and I met a woman named Sarah who had also been through a difficult divorce. She understood what I had experienced, and we built a relationship based on honesty and mutual respect. People sometimes ask me if I regret the way I handled Amanda's affair. They wonder if I should have tried to save our marriage, if I should have been more forgiving, if my revenge was too elaborate and calculated. But they don't understand what it's like to discover that the person you trust most in the world has been systematically betraying you for months. They don't know what it feels like to realize that every "I love you" was a lie. Every kiss was tainted by deception. Every moment of intimacy was contaminated by her relationship with another man. Amanda made her choice when she decided to have an affair instead of working on our marriage or asking for a divorce. She made her choice when she decided to lie to me every day for 6 months. She made her choice when she planned to take half of everything I had worked for and use it to build a new life with her lover. I simply made sure she faced the full consequences of those choices. The car accident that exposed Amanda's affair was supposed to be a tragedy that brought us closer together. Instead, It revealed the truth about who she really was and gave me the opportunity to make sure that truth had consequences. Amanda wanted to have her cake and eat it too, to enjoy the security and respectability of marriage while pursuing the excitement of an affair. She wanted to take half of everything I had worked for and use it to start fresh with another man. Instead, she lost everything and learned that actions have consequences. That's a lesson that has served her well in whatever life she's built for herself now. And it's a lesson that has served me well as I've built a new life based on honesty, trust, and the knowledge that I deserve better than someone who would betray me for 6 months and then lie about it. The best revenge isn't a dish served cold. It's a life lived well with people who value the same things you do, and the knowledge that you stood up for yourself when it mattered most. Amanda got exactly what she deserved, and so did I.